Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are digging into a totally fascinating piece of research from 2026 by Magdalene Owusu-Agyemang. Now, when you think of Luxembourg, what comes to mind? You probably picture incredible wealth, a booming finance sector, and people who are just off the charts happy, right? And you wouldn't be completely wrong, it consistently ranks as a top European performer in quality of life. But we have to ask, is the secret to its happiness really what we all think it is, or is it just a seriously good PR campaign? We're going to bust some major myths today by comparing what everyone assumes with what the actual data tells us. Here is how we're breaking things down today. First up, the Luxembourg happiness paradox. Second, the usual suspects. Third, crunching the numbers. Fourth, the statistical plot twist. And finally, what actually matters.
All right, let's jump right into part one, the Luxembourg happiness paradox. High averages, hidden nuances. Okay, let's dive into this. When a country reports incredibly high average well-being, it is super easy to just pat them on the back, stop right there, and celebrate. But here's the thing. National averages can act kind of like a giant blanket. They cover up all the complex, messy realities underneath. Just take a look at this demographic split. On average, Luxembourg's population is about 53% nationals and a staggering 47% foreigners. We're talking both EU and non-EU citizens. It is a profoundly international place. That massive international presence is literally the cornerstone of its modern identity, and naturally, it's exactly where people start when they're guessing why the country is so successful.
But before we can measure happiness, we actually have to define what we mean by it, right? So we're grounding our explainer today in the World Health Organization's official framework. As you can see, quality of life isn't just about how much money you have in the bank. It's an individual's perception of their position in life. It's heavily influenced by their culture, their values, and their personal goals. It's highly subjective, and honestly, that subjectivity is exactly what makes measuring it both incredibly tricky and absolutely fascinating.
Moving right along to Section 2, the usual suspects, wealth and internationalism.
If you ever find yourself at a dinner party or a networking event in Luxembourg, the popular assumption you'll hear is pretty straightforward. People will tell you the country is happy purely because of its vibrant, multicultural vibe and its highly paid finance sector. It sounds perfectly logical, doesn't it? Well, another huge factor often tied to these assumptions is education. Notice the 2021 education breakdown specifically among the foreign population. There is a massive 68% representation in tertiary or higher education. And the research points out that higher education is consistently associated with higher life satisfaction. Interestingly, this return on education holds steady whether you were born Luxembourgish or you moved there. Education and well-being are just deeply intertwined. Which brings us to Section 3. Crunching the numbers, the analytical strategy. Now, anecdotal guesses from expats are fun, sure, but we need hard math to find the actual truth. To get past all the theories, this study utilized some incredibly comprehensive EU-SILC microdata. It tracked individuals all the way from 2013 up to 2024, looking at their real, reported well-being scores on a scale of 0 to 10. Here's the easy-to-follow recipe the researcher used to make sense of it all. Step 1. Gather that massive set of microdata. Step 2. Look at bivariate associations. Basically, that's just asking, do two things seem to move together, like, say, the number of foreigners and high life satisfaction? And Step 3. Multivariate models, specifically regression analysis. This isolates the variables so you can see if one thing actually predicts another when you tune out all the extra statistical noise. This is rigorous, empirical evidence at work, folks. Okay, to truly grasp the results we're about to look at, we need a super quick stats refresher on something called the p-value. Think of a high p-value like a random coin toss. If a p-value is above 0.05, it means any relationship we're seeing between two things might just be random luck. We desperately want that number to be below 0.05 so we can definitively say, yes, this factor statistically predicts our result. Keep that 0.05 threshold locked in your mind, okay? It's going to be absolutely crucial in just a second.
And that leads us directly to the core question of this entire investigation. I'll pose it right to you. Based on the data, do the percentage of foreigners and the prevalence of finance jobs systematically predict happiness in Luxembourg? We've set up the popular assumptions, we've outlined the rigorous data methodology, so let's just let the aggregate math speak for itself.
Section 4. The statistical plot twist. Busted assumptions. Brace yourselves, because the hard data is about to brilliantly subvert the popular narrative. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is this specific metric, an adjusted R-squared of 0.35. In plain English, when we look at highly educated people in Luxembourg, The combination of the foreign population share and finance sector employment only explains about 35% of the variation in their life satisfaction. That means a massive 65% of the happiness puzzle remains completely unsolved by those two big assumptions.
And here is the absolute bombshell of this explainer. Look really closely at those p-values. Remember our 0.05 threshold for statistical significance? The foreign population share is sitting at 0.50. Finance employment is up at 0.36. Both of those are way, way above 0.05. Meaning, statistically speaking, the sheer number of foreigners and working in the finance sector are not meaningful independent predictors of high life satisfaction in this model. The math simply does not back up the popular myth. No way around it.
Let's just pause for a second and compare these two realities side by side. Over on the left, we've got anecdotal experience. Expats strongly feel that the international environment drives their well-being. But then over on the right, the aggregate data proves that simply taking a broad population percentage of foreigners does not systematically predict life satisfaction. It's this fascinating moment of cognitive dissonance. What people say and feel over drinks just isn't translating into the broad structural data.
Finally, Section 5. What actually matters? Unmasking the disparities.
So, if the secret sauce isn't just the sheer volume of expats or a ton of banking jobs, what is it? Now that the major myths have been thoroughly busted by the regression models, we have to look at the real, underlying structural drivers of life satisfaction. The data points us straight toward concrete, systemic realities. Like we mentioned earlier, education levels are a genuine, massive driver. But look at the friction points here. Minimum wage struggles, rising housing costs, individual integration experiences, and income adequacy. The research highlights that folks living at or below the at-risk of poverty threshold report measurably lower levels of satisfaction. Remember those dazzling national averages we talked about at the very beginning? Well, they mask the very real, day-to-day struggles of people navigating a highly stratified labor market and incredibly expensive housing.
Now, to be absolutely clear, this study is not saying multiculturalism doesn't matter. It absolutely does. But its true effects are highly nuanced. It's really about the individual level experience. Things like how well someone integrates, their linguistic accessibility, and their personal sense of belonging. It's not just a broad demographic percentage on a spreadsheet. Luxembourg is an undeniable success story with really strong social protections, but its prosperity is unevenly distributed. Acknowledging that reality is what actually helps lawmakers craft targeted policies rather than just cruising on assumed success.
Which leaves us with a pretty compelling thought to end on today. If a remarkably wealthy nation's sky-high averages can mask such deep, hidden disparities, what structural realities might your own city's or country's averages be hiding? It really makes you want to interrogate the data around you, doesn't it? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep digging into the numbers, and until next time, keep questioning the averages.